Welcome to Wager Talk Today for Tuesday, January the 16th. The calm before the storm. The NFL wildcard round is complete. The divisional round is on deck, and we will be digging into the NFL playoffs all week long here on Wager Talk Today, including a little wildcat recap here in the show this afternoon. But in the meantime, daily sport, the bread and butter man moneymaker here for all of January is going to be college and pro basketball. We're going to take a deep dive into the NBA tonight with D'Angelo and Skee Profit. Also a little college hoops talk as well. Plus, we have Dave Sharapan coming up from the Las Vegas Strip in Nevada. I am Steve Merrill, filling in for the Prez. He's been grounded by his parents. He can't come back on until Friday. He's in Florida right now as we speak. Joined by my co-host, as always, Teddy Covers. And coming from Teddy's neck of the woods, we're going to go straight to Las Vegas and bring in D'Angelo. And Marco, you are the $2 Tuesday capper. Huge day for you at WagerTalk.com. How have you been doing, my man?
We've been doing very well, getting hot at the right time of the year, and this is nothing new for me. I love conference play in college basketball, and that means when the calendar flips to January 1st, we're in the heart of, for the next 2 months, conference play, and then we get to March Madness. And we had a great season last year, and that run really took off after we got to January 1st, and it started again this year. We're currently on a 23-13 run, Steve, the last 9 days with all plays, and it's been even better in the basketball side. So let's keep it rolling, and we've got a big $2 play tonight. It's my SEC game of the week, a big 4% play.
So we're going to talk NBA and college hoops with you. Let's start with NBA for tonight. The Sacramento Kings closing out a long road trip in Phoenix tonight. Look at the Wager Talk live odds screen. We've seen a little bit of Kings money. Phoenix now -4, -4.5. Total sitting at 244. What are we going to do with the Suns and the Kings Tuesday night NBA?
Well, Teddy, you know I'm a situational guy, and when I sit down to start to handicap a card, I look through the schedule, I look at the game logs, and look at what teams are coming off of, what they got on deck, and so forth. And right away, you started with one of the things. Sacramento's ending a long road trip. They've been on the road for 5 games. I also look at things that I like to fade or go with, and there's several things that Sacramento checks the boxes on for me to go against. One of them is I like to fade teams who are underdogs and played their guts out against a top team in their last game and come up short. Well, that is Sacramento. They played Milwaukee in their last game, barn burner. Also like to go against teams that lost in overtime. Well, guess what? That Milwaukee game was an overtime game. Then I also like to look at teams who lost looking good. You know, I've said it before. I like to look at teams that won ugly because people think they were lucky. Well, I like to go against teams that look good in losing because people expect them to bounce back. Can you possibly look any better than losing 143 to 142 in a barn burner that they were? So I am going to go ahead and go with Sacramento, or go against Sacramento tonight. We have Phoenix returning home, and usually I do look to go against the team at home whenever they are returning home. But because Phoenix lost the first 2 meetings to Sacramento, they're not going to look past them. They're not going to be flat, and they saw what they just did to Milwaukee. So for me, I'm taking Phoenix, and I'm laying the points.
So my numbers show the Suns now 3-11 against the spread. Their last 14 tries on any floor laying -3 or higher. They've been consistently poor favorites, and it really hasn't changed any stretch this season. Does that concern you? Do you worry at all about a team's track record in a particular role? Because you've been playing against the Suns at home. You've been playing against the Suns as chalk. You've been making money all year. Does that worry you in this instance?
Well, obviously, yes, you look at a stat like that, but when you're looking at a team that is a semi-marquee name but has marquee players, obviously Kevin Durant, they're going to be overvalued most of the time. I think because of all the things I just said with Sacramento, I'm actually getting a little bit of value with Phoenix in this game on this particular number. And I do have one stat. I always got to say one thing for the rebuttal with you. And there's an angle in the NBA that when you play against a road underdog coming off 2 or more road losses, and they're facing a team that won by 10 or more points on the road in their last game, it's a small sample size, but it's over 5 years. 25-7 against the spread is the going against those teams. And that would say to take Phoenix tonight. So for everything that I said, I'm going to go ahead and go with Phoenix and look for that good effort tonight from them.
It's Marco D'Angelo talking NBA, and now we're going to turn to college hoops. Once again, Marco's top college play tonight. A strong 4% best bet in the SEC is available for just $2 because it is $2 Tuesday at WagerTalk.com. But Marco, while we have you, let's give them a little taste of how you handicap college hoops, and we'll look at another game on the card tonight. You can look at TCU and Cincinnati, and reminder that the college basketball tip-off show will be the happy hour show will be on at 2 o'clock Eastern today, and a little birdie told me Rob Vino is going to break this game down as well. And Marco, last week, Rob and I both used the same games on Wager Talk Today, and then he used it on that show. And then I used the game here, and he used it on the NBA show. So we're keeping the trend going. So once again, I want to get your take on TCU Cincinnati, and then we can find out later this afternoon if Rob Vino agrees.
Well, Steve, you and I look at things a lot of the time the same way. We are situational guys. We like to find those spots. And, that's the theme of the day for me here. It's situational handicapping. It's conference play. And I am looking, this play is all about fading TCU for me. And what I'm looking at is look at the last 3 games that TCU played. They played Kansas, who is ranked number 3. They lose by a bucket in a heartbreaker, 83-81. Then they follow that up. They return back home. They play Oklahoma. 15th ranked Oklahoma, I might add. They beat them 80-71. Then on Saturday, they have Houston come in, one of the new guns in the Big 12. Houston comes in, and Houston was ranked number 5 currently. They beat them 68-67. Now they got to go out on the road and play Cincinnati. Oh, one of those other newcomers to the Big 12. And this is just a spot that I just can't see them being, at the top of their game for the 4th straight game in a row. So situational wise, I got to look to Cincinnati. And if you're Cincinnati playing at home, with all of the Big 12 teams, the big guns coming, to play. Now, obviously TCU name wise isn't one of the big guns, but they're also a top 25 team as well. So they will be up for this one. I like Cincinnati in this game. Another little angle that I like to look at in college basketball, we look at this kind of in March Madness. We'll talk about it when the line doesn't agree with what the rankings say or the seeding say. And we always, or at least I always say, and I think I've heard Teddy say this many times before, guys that set the seeds and set the polls, they don't bet for a living. The guys that set the numbers in Vegas, they bet for a living. They know what they're talking about. And you've got Cincinnati as a favorite here, as an unranked team playing a ranked team. John Q. Public likes to look at, I'm getting a ranked team catching points. Yeah, let me get me some of that. No, I'll be on Cincinnati tonight. I'm laying the points with Cincinnati.
So Cincinnati's 0-5. It's kind of like what we talked about with the Phoenix Suns in my rebuttal, but Cincinnati's kind of the same story where they've been a point spread failure. 0-5 their last 5 tries is chalk. Does that concern you at all with a team that has consistently failed to cover in the point spread range we're seeing them tonight?
So far this year, you are correct, Teddy, but look, I saved something for the rebuttal. And Cincinnati, now granted, and I know you're going to come back and say, well, that was when they were in the American Athletic Conference. You are correct. But there has been one example so far this year in Big 12 play, and they are 1-0 in it. Going back, this team, the last 2 seasons, when Cincinnati has come off a conference loss, they are a perfect 9-0 against the spread in their next game. And yes, they have had a conference loss already this season. That was to Texas. And what did they do? They came back the next game and covered the spread against Baylor. I'm going to go ahead and take Cincinnati in this one, and I am laying the points, Theodore.
Look at that, man. I know Teddy Covers would be a good attorney, but Marco might have been pretty good in the courtroom as well with the double rebuttal on $2 Tuesday. And once again, Marco does have a strong 4% SEC game of the week for just $2. You might want to pay attention since the start of last year in college and pro hoops. He is now 66 games above 500 and also on a 23-13 run over the last 9 days in all sports. Has seen it pretty well. Marco, tell us a little bit more about this strong play tonight.
Yeah, guys, it's normally a $25 play, and we do this every Tuesday. We highlight one capper. I'm fortunate enough to be that capper this week. Get it for $2. If you've never been a customer at WagerTalk, what better time than to try someone on $2 Tuesday? I've been doing this for over 4 decades, guys. You see me on the shows, the style that I have. It's a good way, $2 Tuesday, to introduce yourself to different handicappers. And this week, it happens to be yours truly. So I hope you join me. I'm looking to cash the ticket tonight.
Yeah, once again, that's normally a $35 play. Well, a $25 to $35 play, and you get it for just $2. Strong 4% best bet, almost a 90% discount off that normal price with $2 Tuesday. Marco D'Angelo, WagerTalk.com. Teddy Covers, Steve Merrill here on Wager Talk Today. We're here every Monday through Friday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, but more importantly on the replay 24/7, so you can watch it at your convenience. Be sure to comment below if you're watching the replay here on YouTube. We read the comments, we reply back. Thumbs up, like, and don't forget to hit subscribe and hit the bell for instant alerts so you know when Teddy's opening line report goes up. It's normally Monday, but it's Tuesday this week. You get an instant alert when it goes up at 1 o'clock Eastern here after the show. Also, my NFL Fade the Public video will be available for every round of the playoffs, so not a bad reason to hit subscribe and hit the bell when you do so. All right, we got Skee Profit on the lineup here coming up shortly to talk a couple NBA best bets. Also, Dave Sharapan from Las Vegas. I'm sure we'll talk some NFL playoffs with Dave. But, Teddy, in the meantime, I want to recap the NFL playoff round with you before we head towards the divisional round. Boy, did the Eagles fall or what? A 10-1 start. Finish now, I guess, 1-6 down the stretch. Kelsey retires. It looks like it's official this time. He's rumbled about it for several years. That might have been the end of the Eagles last night. What were your thoughts on the wild card round overall?
Sure, and I'll talk more about Philly-Tampa than any game because I got that one particularly wrong. But we want to do a little recap of what just happened this past weekend. And a lot of it was, I'm going to call it common sense type of stuff. The Dolphins in the cold. What happened? The Dolphins played like crap. The Cowboys in the playoffs. What happened? Dallas played like crap. And we've seen that from Dallas now repeatedly in the Dak Prescott era, regardless of what head coach he's had. Prescott has stunk in the postseason. We saw, Joe Flacco go out as chalk. And Joe Flacco did what he's done, is make, chuck balls up and defenders made plays. And in my mind, that, looking back at it, fairly easy. Lions win, no cover. I got that one right. Bills did enough yesterday. Pittsburgh gave him a punch. Pittsburgh punched back, which I give the Steelers credit for. Buffalo, despite not turning the ball over, still made their backers sweat in that ballgame, but they came through. And then there's Tampa Philly, which is my end game from last night. I had a 5% big ticket on the Philadelphia Eagles. And that was wrong from the get-go. And it's always this battle between getting the best of the number and incomplete information. I had a good NFL season. I had an excellent NFL stretch run. And at the first look, Philly jumped off the page of me. The betting markets were agreeing. The line was hovering at 2.5. I'm like, gotta lock in at 2.5 before it gets to 3. Early release on a big ticket play on Philly. Lock in the good number. From about the moment I released, every bit of news coming out of Philly was bad. A.J. Brown's going to sit, and Jalen Hurts is now going to play with gloves, and he talks about how he's not comfortable with gloves, and on and on and on. And yet the markets are holding at 3. I hold 2.5. And that game felt over literally on the first drive of the game. Philly defensively missing tackles again and again in that first drive. And Tampa ended up settling for 3, but it didn't feel right. And Hurts didn't look comfortable, and he wasn't comfortable throughout that game. Wrong side loser. Tampa survives, advances, moves on. Philly, you rip up the ticket, you come back. You say, all right, better luck next year, Eagles fans. And as a bettor, you say, hey, I got that one wrong. I missed it. You wipe it away and move on to the next day. That's what I learned this last weekend Mr. Merrill, back to you, my friend.
Yeah, I think something else we could say about the Dolphins, too, other than the cold necessarily, was just that extreme dichotomy between good teams and bad teams. And I pointed it out in my preview of that here on WagerTalk TV, also my Fade the Public video. Dolphins went 10-1 straight up against the non-playoff teams. Their only loss, I believe, was Tennessee this season, who was a borderline playoff team maybe. And then they went 1-6, I guess, to finish straight up and ATS against the playoff teams. So, that was a team that was really good offensively at times, but was kind of a bully, beat up on the good, bad teams and, came up short against the good teams. Something to keep an eye on, I think, in the postseason.
Yeah, and one thing, again, it gets lost in the nuance. It gets lost in all the stuff that we have going right now. But Miami destroyed Tennessee in that game. And Tennessee scored 2 late touchdowns in the end and stole
good point.
So even the loss that Miami had wasn't a game where they played poorly. They played a bad last 3 minutes. They were in control of that game throughout. And all that stuff, again, when we start talking about that game next year or 3 years from now, and you're like, when it comes up, no one remembers, that's what happened. But Miami was pretty dominant on that field for most of the year. Not so much in Kansas City this past weekend. And the injuries. I mean, at this stage of the season, we'll talk about it a lot on the opening line report. Injuries as much a factor as any other thing that you want to talk about. Miami, the injuries mattered for that team this past weekend.
Yeah, let's not forget they put up over 70 points in 3.5 quarters against the Broncos earlier in the season. I mean, it was one of the most explosive offenses we've seen in recent history at times, but they came up short in games that mattered. It'd be interesting to see how they do next year and if they make any improvements. Coaching carousel wide open as well. We'll see if McCarthy is gone in Dallas. Harbaugh apparently interviewed with the Chargers yesterday, and Belichick at 71 years old and Carroll at 72 years old are floating around there. I think I actually think he's going to end up in Dallas. I'd said Belichick, but I think with Tennessee letting their coach go, might be a good fit there in Dallas. But Teddy will have a lot of NFL talk in about 45 minutes here. Opening line report at the top of the hour, 1 o'clock Eastern.
I will have no talk on what coach I think is going to go anywhere because I don't know. Steve doesn't know. The markets don't know. We'll figure out the coaches when they land. If you want to bet on them, knock yourself out. But I don't know what these coaches. I mean, do you know where Belichick's going? No.
No, and like you, I don't really pay much attention to any of this. The transfer portal in college football, the NFL draft makes no difference to me because once again, until the games are actually being played, I'm not going to even worry about college football until all the pieces fall in July and August, to be honest. And it's the same with the NFL draft. But I do think it's fun to talk about. And if I'm Belichick, why would you want to go rebuild the Washington Commanders? If you could take over a playoff caliber team like Dallas. But I don't think I'd want Belichick personally. I think he's over the hill. I think Verbal would be actually and I think Harbaugh obviously would be a get, whoever wants him. I don't know why he'd leave Michigan, Teddy, in my opinion. I think he's got a cake job there. But that's something, obviously, that's more of a sports radio talk type of stuff. We talk about betting. And as you said, that doesn't really help you with any point spread winners here in the near future. Hey, speaking of betting, let's turn back to the NBA. Don't forget the NBA tip-off show will be on this afternoon. Kevin Dolan and myself breaking down some games on that. We're going to get up a little bit early since it's a smaller card. So check back this afternoon here on WagerTalk TV. Yet another reason to hit subscribe and hit the bell for instant alerts. And Skee Profit joins us now. And Skee, Prez is gone this week, but if it makes you feel more comfortable, I will add an S to your last name and make it plural. Just let me know if you want to be Skee Profits today like you are every time Prez is here. If not, I will call you Skee Profit. And he's breaking down some NBA expert at WagerTalk.com. And Skee, let's jump right into it. Give me a player prop you're looking at tonight.
Yeah, I'll look at the Denver and Philly game. And, so, I don't do a whole lot of player props unders. I haven't bet a whole lot of player props in general this season. I do bet them, in previous years. But I'm looking at an under in this one. And it's Nikola Jokic under 26.5 points. Thinking about this matchup, every time Embiid sees Jokic on the court, he should have something to prove. I mean, he spent years crying about how he should be the MVP. And they've had 7 games versus each other. A lot of times Embiid is hurt, or maybe, Jokic is more reliable as far as being on the court. But only 1 out of the 7 games versus Embiid has Jokic reached his point total. He's only cleared 26.5, 4 of his last 11 games. And on the season, he averages 25.5. So I just think Embiid is going to take this game personal. He's expected to be out there on the court. And he's a really great defender. So I'm expecting him to hold Jokic around his average or below. So Jokic under 26.5 points is what I'll roll with for my player prop.
So I got 2 questions here. One is, and this is the most important one, how confident are you Embiid's playing tonight? because it's obviously the second of back-to-back. He's coming off injury. Are we going to see Embiid? The markets don't seem to know. Are you confident he's in?
Well, he is not on the injury report right now. I do know it is a back-to-back, but he didn't play crazy minutes in the game yesterday. I don't think it was too taxing at all. And when you have Jokic on the schedule, I think you should look forward to it. So I can only bet with, like you said earlier, the information that's in front of me right now, and information says that he should be available.
The other question I have is that, Jokic has been on a monster run, at least in terms of field goal percentage. Last 9 games, 81% from the floor. That's sick for anybody. Do you worry that even though he's not going to get a ton of shot attempts, he's going to make everything he puts up like he's been doing in recent weeks?
I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, he's an extremely efficient player, but I would argue that, there are not a lot of centers in the NBA that are as great on the defensive end as Joel Embiid. And even as great as he's been playing field goal percentage-wise the last 9 games, like I said, he's only hit this number 4 of his last 11. So I still think there's room to go under, even if he has a great shooting night. He's going to distribute, and it all depends on how Philadelphia plans on playing him tonight. And I think they'll want to take him out the game.
Yeah, I said earlier there's 5 games. 5 games this Thursday. There's actually just 3 games tonight because 11 games last night on MLK Day. Skee Profit is breaking down 2 of the 3. And in fact, he's breaking down both of the primetime games. Just gave you the 7:30 Eastern TNT matchup between the Nuggets and Sixers. And Skee, what are you looking at in the late night game, 10 o'clock Eastern, between the Oklahoma City Thunder and not your Los Angeles Clippers?
Yeah, now I have to be honest with you guys. I'm always honest, but I like to tell people when I come on here and talk about wagers or bets, I usually have them in my pocket already. This is one that I don't have in my pocket just yet, but I'm considering, and that is the Oklahoma City Thunder side. They did just play versus the Lakers last night. Another game where I don't think the Stars played too many taxing minutes for OKC, and this is a Thunder team that's extremely young. Like, you don't see a whole lot. This is one of the few teams in the league where you look at the injury report and you won't see guys on there on most nights. That's the same case for tonight. I'm expecting them to all have the energy and effort to go out here in a game that means a lot. The standings for the West between 1 through 4, they're separated by 3 games. If I'm not mistaken, the Timberwolves just passed them with the win over the Clippers. And, the Clippers only 2 games behind them. All of these games matter. They put in so much work to get, top of the standings so far this season. I don't think they'll take it for granted and not show up in this game. This is also OKC's role. They're 6-2-1 as a road dog. They play very well versus competition this season. When I talk about competition, I mean greater than 55% win teams. They're 13-4-1 against the spread there. And if you're worried about an unrested Thunder team, they've been great there too. They've covered 4 out of 5. So all of those things I like. If you look at how these teams have been playing lately, I mean, both have been good. Clippers have been good too. But Thunder, top 5 offensive rated and defensive rated team. And they've been the better defensive and rebounding team over the Clippers. And if they can do those things tonight, even on a back-to-back, they can keep it respectable, if not win the game.
So there's nothing you said that I disagree with at all in that concept, in your analysis. My only concern, I guess, with the OKC side is how good the Clips have been off a loss. I mean, they haven't lost a whole lot of games, and they're coming off a game in Minnesota where they rallied from behind, made things interesting late, weren't able to overcome the early deficit that they had fallen into in that ballgame, and now they're coming off a loss. Do you worry at all about the Clips, who are, they've really played good basketball since, about the beginning of December? Off a loss, is that a team you worry about stepping in front of?
They do play really great basketball, and just as big of a spot as it is for the Thunder, it's a big spot for the Clippers too. They want to climb those rankings. So I do think you'll get great effort from their side as well. But the thing I have going for me here, Teddy, is the Thunder don't even have to win this game. They just have to stay within the margin. So yes, the Clippers can win off of a loss, just don't win in a blowout fashion. And I'm pretty confident in that.
Once again, Thunder, one of the best point spread teams in the league the last couple of seasons. And like you said, they don't seem to have a lot of guys on the injury report. And they have a 9 or 10 man rotation too, which helps them play consistently and not have that load management issue like a lot of the Asian teams have as well. Skee Profit, WagerTalk.com. Skee, what you got going on for Tuesday at WagerTalk?
Well, I have two best bets in two different sports. One is in the NBA, 4% play up and available. I've cashed 49 of my last 64 4% or higher in the NBA. So best bet is available. And I have a rare best bet in the NHL. I'm 4-2 so far this season. And there's a play that stands out quite a bit to me on the ice. And last but not least, I want to mention, I don't have any plays up yet, but I like what Teddy was saying earlier. Right now is my time of year to bet football. I'm 6-1 so far in the playoffs. And it just 1 + 1 = 2 time of year for football for me, and that's when I love it. So check out all of my work at WagerTalk.com.
I like it. Football, hockey, NBA, of course, Skee Profit, WagerTalk.com, or as the Canadians say, Skee Profits. There's 2 of them up in Canada. Teddy, couldn't resist. I was watching the replay last week on Tuesday. Every time Prez keeps going, Skee Profits, Skee Profits. Even though right on the screen, Skee Profit. It cracks me up. All right, we got
Singular,
Dave Sharapan.
plural, what are you going to do?
Canadians just pluralize everything, and that's going to get the chat going. Whenever I do that and make an offhand comment about that, they're like, Canada doesn't do that. What are you talking about? There's always 1 or 2. So we'll get the chat going with that. A little controversy on Tuesday. We can't have it drama-free because Dave Sharapan's around the corner. He doesn't like it drama-free. All right, before we get to Dave, though, let's stick in the basketball world, and it really is the daily bread and butter sport. We're talking NFL playoffs a lot, Teddy, but there's only 4 games all week in the NFL, right? We're talking 10, 20-plus games every day, if not 100 on a Saturday in college and pro basketball. That is where you're going to make your money here over the next several months before the baseball season, which is a great money maker as well. So, Teddy, give us a little basketball talk here for Big Game Breakdown Tuesday.
Yeah, there's 7 games remaining in the entirety of the football season. That's less than half of what you'll see on a normal NFL Sunday. So just remember that when it comes to betting sizes and how much you plan on risking in the NFL over the course of the next few weeks. I'm going to talk about some college hoops today. This one should be fun on Fox Sports 1, Seton Hall and St. John's. A Big East showdown. Rick Pitino, Shaheen Holloway. Right now, look at the Wager Talk live odds screen. I'm seeing the Red Storm -1, total in the 146.5 range. And these are 2 programs that are both headed in the right direction right now. Rick Pitino has breathed some life into the Red Storm. They're 4-2 in the Big East, 12-5 overall. Same record for Seton Hall this season, and they sit on top of the league with a 5-1 or 5-1 mark in Big East play. There's supposed to be a nice crowd at the Prudential Center this evening. They're expecting 10,000 plus. And when I'm looking to break down these games, I'm always looking for the local beat writers. And I was reading an article in the Asbury Park Press earlier this morning. When it comes to the Asbury Park Press or any of these local beat writers, I'm always like, you're trying to get a lot of info. You're scanning. Then all of a sudden at the bottom there, you're like, ooh, read down to the bottom on these things. All right. St. John's, they're the deeper team. They play faster than Seton Hall is going to do. And when you run into some of these quotes, they right at the bottom when it comes to tempo, quote, they play a different style, a style we're not accustomed to. On a short prep like this, it's hard to prepare a team because there's not much we can do to simulate or emulate what they do. That is a meaningful quote when it comes to the total. That's a meaningful quote when it comes to the side. When it comes to 2 fairly evenly matched teams. Again, we're talking about a point spread of 1. All right. We're expecting, because Seton Hall's coach just told us to expect, we're expecting St. John's to be able to control the pace here. And that means up and over the total. Of course, Pitino brought his point guard from Iona. All right, so they're good in that spot. They're also a team that's learned how to close out games. Last 2 losses on the road by a combined 5 points to UConn and Creighton. So the Johnnies are playing better than their full season stats would indicate. I like the over in this game. I like St. John's as well. I think there's some correlation between the 2. That's the way I look. Fox Sports 1, Tuesday night college hoops. There's your Big Game Breakdown. Back to you, Mr. Merrill.
Once again, more college basketball talk Monday through Friday here with the College Basketball Happy Hour tip-off show. It'll be on at 2 o'clock Eastern today. I'll be on actually along with Brian Leonard and Rob Vino. So lots of college talk Monday through Friday now that we're in the heart of the conference season. Don't forget also about the NBA tip-off show. We're going to have it up early this Tuesday and Thursday. Just 3 games today, just 5 this Thursday. So look forth earlier this afternoon, Kevin Dolan and myself. And then, of course, tomorrow we'll have Skee Profit on again, and then Rob and Ronald Kabang will be on at the normal time, 4:15 Eastern. Teddy, hopefully we'll get Dave Sharapan here in a moment. He's a busy man in Las Vegas, but I want to go back to college hoops since you just did a breakdown. How does your handicapping approach change? Maybe explain to people the difference now that we're in conference play between November and December, January and February going forward. For me, at least, it's definitely a different type of handicap, and I love it because a lot more information, and teams all play common opponents here. We also get the younger players with a couple games, a couple months under their belt. I really think this is a great time of year to be playing college hoops.
Sure. One of the things, I mean, my number one priority this time of the year is try to find teams that have morphed. Teams whose season-long stats are going to lie. Teams maybe had a great Thanksgiving tournament run, notched off some impressive wins, sent their power rating up. And then, or maybe a great Christmas tournament run, whatever it is. Powering numbers go up, the team's not necessarily any better than they were. It's the same story on the other piece of the equation. I'm looking for sure to find teams that were supposed to be good. People keep expecting them to be good, and yet they're just not what people thought they were going to be. Now they're returning home and they're going to win a game because they're at home. I really look to bet against some of the overvalued squads this time of year, the teams that are failing to cover point spreads on a regular basis. And again, they might have been good point spread teams November and December. January, a different story. So a lot of times, I guess, if I'm going to sum it up in a sentence, I'm looking to fade some of the things that worked over the first 2 months of the season. The hot teams in November and December aren't necessarily the hot teams in January and February, and vice versa. And you'll oftentimes see teams go on a lousy point spread run early, then have a whole lot of value for their backers late, or vice versa. So I guess I'm looking for a reversion of the mean, a reversal of the norm. That's my approach at this time of the year. What about you, Steve?
Yeah, Teddy, and it's funny. I'm looking at the hottest point spread teams in the country this season. The Minnesota Golden Gophers started the year as 14-1, depending on what lines you use, but they started as good as 14-1 against the spread, and they now failed to cover their last 2. They're 14-3.
I bet against them last night.
Played Iowa last night, obviously, and that was a situation. Actually, I used to free play Minnesota. That was the one game I was close to using last night, so I would have been on the opposite side. Luckily, I kept it off as a best bet. I only made an opinion on the free play, but what'd you like about Iowa? I liked Minnesota, strong home court, slowing it down a little. Iowa, a fast-paced team. What did you see about that, or is it a play against Minnesota for you going forward?
It was bet on and bet against. It was both. Again, I'm looking for very short-term current form. Iowa, mediocre for much of the season. Mediocre to open up Big Ten. Now they've won 3 in a row. All right. They flipped the switch. They're clicking. And they played good basketball last night. They really did. They were the better team. Minnesota, when you have a team that goes 14-1 ATS, you build a betting bandwagon. Oftentimes a pretty big betting bandwagon. Minnesota's not that good. All right. They're okay. When at the end of the season, we look at the Big Ten standings, Minnesota's going to be in the bottom half, not the top half. So you find a team that has that level, that extraordinary point spread success early, and you have to expect a reversion to the mean. And that's what we're seeing for Minnesota right now. I think there will be continued value betting against the Gophers moving forward. Looking like, which team am I looking to fade in the Big Ten? Minnesota's at or near the top of my list.
Yeah, and by the way, if you look at the best point spread team right now is Cal State Northridge, 13-2. A lot of small college teams up there, Troy 11-2, but a couple big names other than Minnesota. South Carolina 12-4. They've had some rough seasons in years past. So I thought that was interesting. And Arizona 12-4 against the number. And then the other end of the spectrum, the worst point spread team in the country. We're talking about 362 Division I teams. Let's not forget how many teams are in basketball now. And they pretty much have lines on all of them on a daily basis. UTEP, Texas El Paso, 2-11-1 ATS. And Old Dominion, 3-13, a team I saw lose as a road favorite here at William & Mary earlier this season. And then the coach, of course, had a heart attack out in Hawaii about a month ago. It's been a rough season for the Old Dominion Monarchs, 3-13 ATS. Pacific, 3-14. Real quick before we get to Dave Sharapan, Teddy, any of those names I mentioned maybe turning the corner, good or bad?
Not a one stood out to me.
Gotcha. Me neither.
I don't remember
me neither. That's why I thought I'd ask you, but I didn't expect you to say yes.
Yeah, when we're talking, the mid majors can hold their value much longer than the majors. We talk about the Power 5 conferences. a point spread team that's great from the Southland can stay great all year long. And that's not going to be the case when you talk about a Big Ten team or a Big 12 team or an ACC team and then Pac-12 and on down the road. The major conference schools, the markets catch up with them a good notch or two quicker than the lesser conference schools.
Yeah, it's a great point. I'm looking at the 10 worst point spread teams. Arkansas, Missouri, 4-12 ATS. There's no other Power 5 schools in like the bottom 12 because, like you said, those bad teams and the good teams in the mid-majors can fly under the radar a little bit longer. So it's an excellent point, something to keep in mind on when you're handicapping college hoops. All right, let's head out to Vegas. We had Marco, we have Teddy. Now we got another Vegas dude, and we had Skee. I'm the only non-Vegas guy on the show today.
Wow.
It's Canadian-free version, though, drama-free Tuesday, Dave Sharapan. So you're safe to come on. I know you were hiding in the corner to make sure Prez really wasn't here, but he's not here. It's safe. And look at what you're wearing, man. I got to say, man, I normally like the combinations, but that red with the Edmonton jersey, it's a clash. I don't know. Prez might not approve.
Nothing. Yeah. Well, I was prepared. I didn't know that it was you, Steve. So good to see you, sir. I was ready for Prez and the Canadian. I was going to tell him how good the Oilers are and that the Canadian team could actually win the Stanley Cup this year, how good the Vancouver Canucks have been, the Winnipeg Jets. I had all the hockey stuff prepared, and I don't want any drama on a Tuesday. But, my God, it's great to see you. So no Prez, no drama. Theodore and you. What's up, fellas? What do we got to talk about today?
Well, let's talk about some NFL playoffs. That's on center stage right now. It is what it is. How'd the books do this weekend? Was there a particularly good game or a particularly bad game? Did they work out all right? Tell me about that.
One guy I know from BetMGM now said it may have been the single biggest day that they've had other than a Super Bowl. The weekend. It was insane. Green Bay beating Dallas outright. Forget it. And then after that, but it started off good with the Texans winning. And it just went from there, Teddy. It was a really good week. The game, they said they middled the game with Detroit winning, but the Rams covering was a perfect scenario. That's usually a good result. So all good. And then I guess last night was just the icing on the cake. But the total in the Bills game, another decision that went their way. And, one of those situations where got to check the house rules, but most places kept it as action because it was within 24 hours and it was at the same location. So under 37, 36, 35, 34, down to 33 looked really good if they played the game on Sunday. But they played the game Monday and it reopened up 38 and went up to 39 and it flew over the total. So win some, lose some, like Mitch and Paulie say on VSiN. Well, the books won almost all of them, Teddy.
Big week for the house, says Dave Sharapan at SportsBK Consig on Twitter. One of our resident odds-making experts, a guy who has, 20-plus years as a bookmaker, both here in Las Vegas and across the global community. Dave Sharapan, when it comes to contacts around town, aren't many guys who have a better Rolodex than Dave Sharapan to getting quality information. So, obviously, the lines are just up. Yep. What are we hearing about the 4 divisional round matchups for this weekend? Anything stand out in terms of early week betting? Who's jumping on the openers and what are they betting?
Nothing yet. Any 5.5s that were available for the lines are gone. Other than that, though, like the numbers are going to go, I think, and not move nearly as much as last week. This is one of the best weeks of football period ever, just every single year. You have pretty much 8 quality teams. There's no real surprises at this point. Everyone that's made it this far has earned it. So the numbers are really good. And you saw it with the totals this past week. I mean, they're getting better and better and better. The odds makers have all the information. And I don't think you're going to see much line movement, Teddy. Now, what happens is that a lot of people will fall in love with what they just saw. The Texans will be a popular choice. How could they possibly be 9.5 or 10 against Baltimore? Well, the bye is the hardest thing to measure, okay? Houston, I mean, that was a really good game, clean game, minimal injuries. Baltimore didn't play. They got healthy. They're resting. They're game planning, all that other stuff. Same with San Francisco. Green Bay looked, I mean, there's people that were buying Green Bay futures that said they could win that game and they can win in San Francisco. We'll see. And then the other two games are just, they're great. Tampa destroys Philadelphia going to Detroit. Detroit, the whole city, they get a home game, they get a win. Teddy, it was 1991 the last time they won a home playoff game. Where were you in 1991, you two? I remember where I was. I was 20 years old. It was incredible. It was a great year for me. Turning 21. It's a great year for the Lions then. Could be a great year for them if they win and go to the NFC Championship. In Kansas City, Buffalo, Sunday night. You can't ask for a better game. It's the game of the week, of the year, everything about it. I think Buffalo is going to be a very popular choice.
Dave, I remember exactly where I was because I was at the other divisional game that year when the Redskins were beating the Falcons in the pouring rain and Jerry Glanville and Deion Sanders.
Oh.
And then the next week, the Lions lost at RFK, and that's when the Redskins went on to win their last Super Bowl 26. And that was the Utley year, if you remember, and that really spurred the Lions. I'm not even sure they would have been that good otherwise, Teddy.
I don't remember the Lions winning the playoff game. I remember them getting destroyed the following week at Washington.
Correct. That's all I remember. Yeah, I don't even know who they played in the divisional round.
Destroyed
with Dallas
by the Redskins. Dallas. Yeah, they beat Dallas. They beat Dallas.
Is that who it
I
was
in Michigan at the time. Yeah, I was in Ann Arbor at the time.
Yeah. That was a big
that week. That was the Utley year, though, and that really catapulted that team emotionally. But, hey, look, it's a good setup for them getting the Buccaneers. Tampa's playing great, 6 out of 7. Mayfield had a monster game, but still a pretty good setup for Detroit to maybe get to the conference championship. And, by the way, Dave, just a quick look at the public consensus, very early numbers that I'm looking at. You're exactly right. The public is leaning towards the 2 big dogs, and they're probably leaning towards the 2 favorites in the other games. So that's how this stuff works.
Yep.
I love fading public dogs, and whether it's the NCAA tournament or the NFL playoffs, you start seeing more public dogs because they're quality teams getting points. And all of a sudden, Joe Blow loves to play the big name teams catching points. Dave, I only have a couple minutes left with you. Teddy has opening line report at the top of the hour. So we're going to get to some actionable info. Hey, if you have something for the Tuesday night hockey or basketball, throw it out. But otherwise, you can also just give us a big picture thought now that basketball is the bread and butter sport. You know how that changes in January and February with football winding down.
Oh, yeah. I looked at the hockey card this morning, and I said Winnipeg is a favorite against the Islanders. And Toronto to Edmonton is the matchup of the night. 2 Canadian teams, and a lot of, I was looking at all of it in that regard for Prez, but I want to let him know. He didn't let me know, but that's okay. Seattle, little bit live today, plus a $1.50. Colorado at Ottawa. Ottawa is probably a very live dog there, guys. Calgary at home against Arizona. Arizona's a live dog. And Toronto, Edmonton. I like Edmonton. I think Edmonton is playing their best hockey of the season, which I don't know if it's good or bad long term, but they're playing great right now, them on the money line. That's the hockey. I don't know what else. I didn't really look at the college, but I heard what you said. The conference play is the best for college basketball. Last week we talked about it. There were a lot of home dogs. There's a few of them today I think are very live to cover. And we saw last week was decimation. It's the first time in, I can't remember how many years, I remember the stat that almost all of the top 10 teams lost in the same week. College basketball is wide open, boys.
Dave Sharapan at SportsBK and Sig on Twitter. Dave, tell our audience what other shows you're on, what you're doing, where they can find you. Promote yourself, my friend.
Thank you, sir. Every day, Monday through Friday, Bostonian versus the Book at 11 o'clock-ish Pacific. We always say 11:15-ish, 2:15 in the afternoon. That's on @ Boston versus the Book. Sports Grid and Sirius XM every night, in-game live, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. That's on all those different platforms. Cash Considerations, me, Dan Alexander, and our other third co-host when he's able to make it, Tony Yanizzi, do a show every week, at least once or twice a week. And then I won't be here next week because I will be in New Jersey, although I might be able to do the show from there. I still haven't determined where I'm going to be. But I'll be back there. Got some meetings. We got to discuss some things for the upcoming season. Baseball season will be here before we know it, boys and girls. I can't wait. But I'm taking my oldest to college, dropping her off this weekend. It's a big day, and I don't know, Teddy. I'm not prepared for what's going to probably come out of me emotionally, but I'm dropping my oldest off to spread her wings and play softball back east. So that's it, man. Sports B Cake and Sig for all of it. We'll have all of the East Coast trip as well on there. See you.
Awesome. Follow him at Sports BK Consig on Twitter. And Dave, it's safe to go down to the Strip. Prez is in Florida. He's not in Vegas, so you're safe for the rest of the week. That's Dave Sharapan. Woo! You can also find him on Sports Grid TV. Get on the grid. Teddy covers the only thing better than 2 NFL wildcard games on Monday is getting your opening line report on Tuesday. And it's up in 15 minutes here at 1 o'clock Eastern. If you're watching this on the replay here, comment below. We read all the comments, reply back, thumbs up, like, and hit subscribe and hit that bell for instant alerts. So you know when the opening line report goes up and when my NFL Fade the Public video goes up later this week for the NFL playoffs. Also, daily college and pro basketball solo videos throughout the week here on the channel. Check those out as well. And Teddy, I'll be back tomorrow on Wednesday to do this again with you at noon Eastern.
Always a pleasure with you, Steve. I can't say that when Prez is in town. Then it's only sometimes a pleasure. That being said, that's going to wrap it for the Tuesday edition. Like Steve said, we'll be back with the NFL opening line report for divisional matchups to discuss with Drew Martin at the top of the hour right here on the WagerTalk YouTube channel. Between now and tomorrow's WagerTalk